The basic step is 1, 2, 3.
A casual dance sesh with your friends. Looks fun and normal, but for this extraordinary human, getting here was anything but. Imagine a little girl. This little girl hearing this.
But I get told when I'm 6 that I was born with cancer in my ovaries. And so they had to be removed by surgeons to save my life.
Further, you'll never be able to have kids. Your doctors saved your life, but you shouldn't tell anyone.
They were saying, don't tell anybody. Everyone's gonna make rumors.
Imagine then realizing you weren't born with cancer. That was just a story for you being born out of the binary. Being told you were a girl, but genetically, you weren't.
I wasn't born a boy, but I wasn't exactly born a girl either. I was born this thing that's called intersex.
Our guest is intersex advocate and author Pidgeon Pagonis. Every detail of their story is as gruesome as it is triumphant.
You had a clitorectomy at 4.
Yes.
And then a vaginoplasty.
Oh, their story is all the things. Sad, shocking, will leave you, well, like this.
So,
It's too much.
It's too much. It's too much, I know.
But they've endured. Pidge's journey to find normal and relentless advocacy work is the definition of perseverance. I'm Matthew Rodrigues, and remember, it's okay to ask questions.
Okay.
Every time I speak on this topic, it makes me relive what I went through. And it's like you can never get away from it. And so the book, which is called Nobody Needs to Know, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek play on what the doctors always told me, that nobody needs to know this secret about me. And it's turning that on its head and kind of telling everybody everything.
Nobody needs to know, but everybody needs to.
But everybody needs to know.
Because it must be exhausting. If someone was talking to me and they were always asking me about my penis or my parts or my body or my, like, constantly,
Yeah.
that would be very invasive and very hard to navigate.
The book was torturous to write.
We're here talking about how you don't want to relive things, but we
Yeah,
are in an
all
interview.
I do is relive this.
We are in an interview where I have to talk about, because I want people to know your
Yeah,
story,
they need to
and
know.
that is why we are here.
Yeah.
And respectfully ask for you to kind of start at the beginning of
Sure.
how you were born, and things were a little different.
I was born intersex. No one knew, so they assigned me female at birth until about 6 months later. My pediatrician sent me to a specialist at Lurie Children's Hospital. And then,
Here in Chicago.
yeah, they ran some tests, discovered I was intersex.
And what is intersex in your definition?
It's when a person doesn't meet the biological standards or definitions of being completely male or completely female. So you have some sex traits, whether those are chromosomal, hormonal, your genitals, etc., that don't neatly fall into the category 100% male or 100% female. So about 2% roughly of the population in the world are born with something going on in their body biologically that could get them considered or classified as intersex.
There's a lot of variation in it.
Oh yeah,
A lot of variation.
it
many,
is the
many different.
hardest thing to talk about
I can't imagine.
succinctly.
Yeah.
Because like you just said, there's over 25, maybe more, intersex variations. So it's really hard to ever talk because you can't generalize about anything. I can't say all intersex people do this or have this, because we don't. And then there's the surgery aspect. We could all be intersex, but not all of us have had surgery, which then affects you completely different as well, because there's, different amounts of trauma if you've had surgery done to you against your will than if you hadn't. So, yeah. So that's intersex in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's just, I call it being born too cute to be binary.
Which is the best. I've seen you have T-shirts
It's
and
easier.
stickers.
Yeah.
It is too cute to be binary.
It's like my body was just born outside of the binary, and that's it.
The doctors are saying what to your parents when you're born?
So from what I understand, they wanted to pass me off as an underdeveloped female child, and that they had techniques and tools and techniques to further my to finish the cooking that didn't happen in my mom's oven when I was in her stomach.
Right.
So I came out a little raw, and they were like, we could put some seasoning and cook them up, and then they're gonna be a real female, and don't worry about it.
Roll out that dough.
Right. And so that's what they were telling my parents, and they told them that your kid was born with gonads, and they said these are basically underdeveloped ovaries, and if we leave these gonads in because they're underdeveloped, there's going to be a huge risk of cancer when they hit their teens, their puberty years. So they suggested to my parents, let's take out the gonads. Now, the truth is, I was born with undescended testes but I also have XY chromosomes, which is typical for a male child. Before I was even one, they had removed my gonads. This was the way that doctors thought back then, and still somewhat to this day, is that let's assign the child a sex. So we see the child as indeterminate, neither male or female completely, but let's pick one that we think will be the best fit for them. So in my case, they said, we're going to assign this child, keep their assignment of female. And now with this assignment, they decided they needed to do things like remove anything that was male from my body that they could. So because I had undescended testes or gonads, they removed those because that wouldn't go along with the assignment that they wanted me to have, which was female.
Okay, this is where it gets real convoluted for Pidge. Doctors thought they couldn't process androgens, and as part of their treatment, they'd have to supplement with hormone replacement therapy in the form of estrogen in their pubescent years. But it doesn't end there.
They also talked my parents into removing my clitoris when I was only 4 years old.
As a gay man, I don't know much about the clitoris. I don't.
You do,
but
though.
I do, but I know the nerve endings, to have any kind of surgery on that area has to be extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
It's mutilating you.
It is.
It's absolute mutilation.
It's barbaric.
Basically, the clitoris, when a boy is being created, the clitoris enlarges and turns into the penis.
Exactly.
Gonads drop, become the testes, or they stay in and they become
ovaries.
the ovaries.
Yes,
right?
you
So
know
that way
this.
we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Only because of you, because I had to look up a lot of things.
Put a thing on the screen.
Yeah, we'll do some graphic.
Yeah, do a graphic.
We'll do a graphic from one of
So
those
yeah,
anatomy
we all
books.
start life in this indeterminate state.
You had a clitorectomy at 4.
Yes.
And then a vaginoplasty.
When I was 11 or 10 or 11. And right before the surgery, the same day, the same morning, they come in, the 2 doctors or one of them or 2 of them, and they're like, we noticed that your vaginal opening is a little bit smaller than most other girls. And in order to have, normal sexual relationships with your future husband, we think it would be best if we enlarged it while you're on the operating table, while we're fixing your bladder and your urethra. And they said, do you want that? Like, yeah. And I'm thinking... To me, yeah.
An 11-year-old.
Yeah, and I'm like, learning about sex ed and what sex is, and they're like...
You've just learned about. I mean,
right,
at 11,
5th grade,
it's like a couple years
just
maybe.
Learning about it, and I'm thinking that's something I want, to be able to have sex one day with my future partner. Back then, I was thinking husband. And I'm thinking, I want to be normal. I already don't feel normal in school because I can't have a period. I was born with cancer. I can't have children, which I already knew. I'm going to have to tell my future husband, and will they even love me if I can't have kids? And now they're telling me, your vagina is too small to have sex one day, so do you want that? And I'm thinking, do I want to be normal? Yeah, I do.
Cut to, you're in college.
Yes.
In a gender studies?
Psychology of women.
Psychology of women class. And the professor does what?
So the professor puts a slide up, and on one of the slides, it's all about, women and psychology and different types of women, this and that. And then there's a section called androgen insensitivity syndrome, or AIS. And there's some characteristics of women or people who are born with androgen sensitivity syndrome. The slide says things like, women with AIS can't have children, like biologically cannot give birth. Okay. Women with AIS don't have a period, like don't menstruate. I'm like, okay. And then it says, women with AIS have XY chromosomes. And I'm like, oh, that's not me.
No.
You know, I'm a girl.
Yeah,
I have
I'm good.
XX chromosomes. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. I play on an all-girls I play on an all-girls softball team. I have a boyfriend, et cetera, et cetera.
Pidge didn't know then, but we already do.
I was born with undescended testes. I also have XY chromosomes.
Were the hairs standing up on the back of your head at all, or not at that point?
I think so, because I remember a time when I was a teenager going to Lurie, and they had given me a piece of paper with something written on it that was my condition, which was androgen insensitivity syndrome. And they had told me, oh, there's a support group maybe if you want to join it. We can connect you. And I think I just threw the paper away. I didn't want to be a syndrome. I didn't want to go to a support group. I didn't want to have a syndrome or whatever. It's going to sound messed up to say, but I felt like it would be like a freak, like I was a freak, and then I'd go to this support group with other freaks, and then I just didn't want that. I wanted to just be normal.
Was that them, though, trying to explain to you your situation? I mean,
I guess.
Do you think you couldn't take it in at the time, or do you think
I
they
couldn't.
truly weren't explaining it in the way they needed to?
Even if they did explain it the way they needed to, it was after everything they had done to me.
Right.
So I was like
Yeah.
15 or something.
Yeah.
You could make a choice to go down that rabbit hole, and I didn't make that choice. I didn't
I get
want
it.
to.
I mean, I can't compare, but I remember having feelings of being gay and that bubbling up and like someone talking about it and saying it, but then you just block it. You just continue to block it. I mean, obviously
Block.
very different.
Yes.
You block it out.
I was trying to
It's
block
like
it out.
almost like you don't, it's
You
not like
know.
I'm not holding it in, I'm not thinking about it, I'm not like, oh, I'm gay, I don't want anyone to know. It was literally just like, boop, anytime it came into my head, just push it away.
And at least you're with gay, you have a blueprint in media or like
Oh,
the world. You're
completely.
like, I know what gay is. But if you
I knew
see
what it
something
meant.
like
You don't even
androgen
know what it
insensitivity
means.
syndrome, you're like, I don't know what that means. And
Right.
like, what is it? I didn't even know what androgen meant. I didn't know what any of that word
Sounds like
meant.
just some science.
Yeah. And I just knew it would mean you're not normal. And I
Yeah.
just wanted, in my teenage years, my junior high years, I just wanted to be normal because I already knew I wasn't. I was already holding on to secrets that I was told by the doctors that I had to keep. They were saying, don't tell anybody. Everyone's going to make rumors. They don't need to know you can't have kids. They don't need to know you don't have a period. So I was already this kid that was holding all these secrets.
Searching for answers and over all of the secrets, Pidge found out she indeed had AIS, or thought she did. We'll get to that later.
I still don't even know I'm intersex at this point. All I realized in that call was I have XY chromosomes, which to me, I thought I'm a boy.
Right.
Oh my God, they lied to me. I'm actually a boy. And I just didn't know how to handle that because again, I only knew the binary for sex. I knew there was boys, I knew there was girls, I knew there was males, I knew there was females, and that was it. And so I knew XY chromosomes, okay, that must mean I'm actually a boy and the whole world lied to me. And I felt everything, like the air leave my body, like the oxygen, the floor below, everything, nothing seemed solid anymore. Nothing seemed real anymore. And it made me feel so scared and upset and lonely and afraid and all the feelings, rageful. Now, thanks to the internet, I started Googling things. I learned about this word, intersex. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm this, I'm intersex.
Intersex.
And I didn't want to be intersex.
No.
And so,
No.
again, I want to be
Poor
normal.
Seth. Yes.
So when I got my medical records from Lurie, that's when I see the words. Actually, it first said hermaphrodite. So in the 80s, it said male pseudo-hermaphrodite. That put me down a new rabbit hole. Okay, I am male. I'm like, that's confirmed. I was actually born a boy. And then I was like, what is a pseudo-hermaphrodite? So then as the years go on in my medical records, you start seeing the terms like intersex.
They changed the terms.
Androgen insensitivity syndrome, partial androgen insensitivity syndrome. I start to piece everything together and realize I wasn't born a boy, but I wasn't exactly born a girl either. I was born this thing that's called intersex, and there's many ways of existing in the world, and one of the ways is intersex. And I was actually born with XY chromosomes, undescended testes, but the inability to process testosterone. My body would actually take testosterone, if I had any, and convert it into estrogen. That's what happens with people with AIS. So then they externally develop as what looks like, or appears to be, a female. And so that was what I found out.
How do you think your body would be
So,
if they hadn't done all of this?
so get this. This is how I lived my
Get
life
this.
until I was about 33. Thinking I had androgen insensitivity syndrome, because it's in my records. Thinking that if they hadn't done surgery, I would have had these gonads that were testicular in nature, and maybe they would have produced androgens or testosterone. My body would take that testosterone that's produced by my gonads or my testes and convert it into estradiol or estrogen. For lack of a better words, I would look like a typical woman that went through puberty.
That's what you thought
Yes.
would happen.
I thought, okay, that's what would have happened. I found out when I'm 33, I want to say. My endocrinologist was looking at my medical records and said, something seems off. He swabbed my cheek, sent it into a genetic lab. Find out I don't even have AIS. I have something else. I know that's what I was thinking. So, this is
It's too
much.
much.
It's too much. It's too much. I know.
It's too much.
So
So what do you,
I have this thing that doesn't even really have a name yet. They just call it by the gene, where the gene is, where the gene has like a difference. It's called SF-1.
okay,
And then,
another acronym.
yes, the key difference between AIS and people with SF-1, I know all the acronyms, is I have 100% responsiveness to testosterones and androgens. So,
So you would have been more male presenting.
yes. So all the decisions they made for me was based on the false premise that I had AIS and would be able to do nothing with androgens anyways and testosterones. So they're like, assign them female, make them female, do everything female, give them female hormones, do a surgery to make them more female. Turns out they were wrong. And I actually have the complete ability to process testosterone. Yeah. So not only is
So-
what they did messed up on that, like, just, it was non-consensual.
You would have lived your
But it
life.
was like completely, they didn't even know what they were doing. Like, even what they thought they were doing, they were wrong.
You would have lived your life as a
Male, probably.
As male, right?
Yeah, but with like a
And-
small penis. So then there's
Right.
that whole thing.
Right. Which, I mean, look,
It's a lot.
that is its own thing.
And I would have, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I just watched the movie Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume. The book, it's based on the book by
Yeah.
Judy Blume. It's about young girls growing up together and going through puberty. But then you had this secret you were hiding. That must be really hard to go through as a kid.
Yeah.
I wonder how you look back at that time. Were you
No.
No.
Happy?
Yeah.
I'm
Did you have
surprised
happy
I'm
moments?
alive. Like,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that I've made it this far in life, alive. A lot of my memories were just crying and not even knowing what was going on, just being really depressed, being really angry and scared and upset, and just, it's a horrible way to grow up, to be told that you're not good enough as you are. So you have to cover these things up and you have to lie about them. It sucks.
So Pidge began telling others they were intersex. It started with a college thesis, then public speaking, filmmaking, and starting the Intersex Justice Project. Through this organization, they became laser focused on a single goal: ending non-consensual intersex surgeries.
We started doing protests every year, especially on Intersex Awareness Day, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, but always on Intersex Awareness Day, at the front doors of Lurie Children's Hospital. Year after year, they shrugged us off, more or less.
No justice, no peace. No intersex surgeries. No justice, no peace. No intersex surgeries.
On the verge of burnout, Pidge and the Intersex Justice Project kept pushing to end the surgeries. After a social media snafu by the hospital and the ensuing backlash internally and in public, coupled with a change in the administration, Pidge and her community got what they wanted.
I got an email in my inbox where me and the co-founder actually of IJP both got an email in our inboxes and that they were ending the surgeries.
They said they were ending the surgeries.
Then we saw the statement, and in it they apologized and that's the first time a hospital in the U.S. or the world has ever apologized to anyone intersex, let alone the whole community, that they had done. They said, we recognize we've done harm to all these people, and we apologize for it, and we're going to end the surgeries. And that was huge. We didn't use the legal system. We didn't use nothing. We just used a few people coming together, starting a little organization. No funding. We had no grants. We were not a nonprofit. We had no money, nothing, ever. We did it all on our own time and on our own space, and just using. Luckily, Chicago has such a great community, because at the end of the day, everyone knows this is a human rights issue, and it's about bodily autonomy. And if they could do this to intersex kids, then whose autonomy can they strip next? So yeah, that was a huge moment.
What did that feel like? It's literally like half your life spent fighting fighting what had been done to you.
It's funny.
And then all of a sudden it's like, in a way, I mean, it wasn't over, but for that hospital,
it
was over.
Right. It was for that one hospital. After the dust settled, I got really depressed. It's I think my purpose. I didn't know what to do with my life anymore. We had reached this goal that I never thought was possible in my lifetime. We had talked, me and the co-founders, he mostly, and I would kind of just agree with him. He's like, we're just laying seeds for the next generation. We didn't think we would see this, because lawyers had tried this and others had tried so much stuff, and it just never went our way. And so we just thought, okay, we'll try this, but it's not going to work. But
and then
worked.
It's like it works.
Yeah, we didn't know what to do.
Like,
we didn't have a plan
wait,
B.
what do I do with these business cards?
Exactly.
So right now we're at a time where there's so many laws coming against our transgender brothers and sisters out there. I wonder if this gives you PTSD thinking about what you've had to fight, if you have insight on how they can prevent these laws from coming into fruition.
I feel very stuck, or my tongue is tied every time I go to speak about these laws, or about intersex in general, intersex rights. We, as an intersex activist community, have been kind of worried. Ever since we tried to take legal approaches, we knew that inherent in those approaches could be a legislative slippery slope that could be then used against trans people. For instance, if I wanted to advocate for a law in Illinois or the country that says no child or no intersex child shall be allowed to have a surgery against their will until they are 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
People who don't want trans kids to have gender affirming care can say that was a precedent that was set. We'll take that precedent, and now we'll fight for our own laws against trans people. And they can use intersex activism against trans people.
I was thinking that reading your book. I was
mess.
thinking that. I was like, I believe what you're saying.
Right.
I believe what transgender children are saying. But when you put the two messages side by side, it really muddies the waters.
It does. It does.
Because you can't say don't do it on these kids, but you can do it on these kids.
Yes.
I mean, you can, but how do you say that?
Right.
I was getting nervous. I was sweating. I was like, wait, this doesn't help the cause.
Anything that I say to advocate for intersex kids could be used against trans people. What I'd like to mention also is that intersex people can be trans. I've been talking about it to this point, it's always separate. But like you said, it muddies the waters, and then how do you talk about these two things side by side? And I think the only way, or one of the ways to talk about it, is to talk about bodily autonomy. When we're saying we don't want intersex kids to have these surgeries forced upon them, that's the key word. We were pro-surgery if someone intersex grew up and wanted it. We were always just against non-consensual surgery forced on people against their will, without their consent. So I think if you keep the argument on human rights and bodily autonomy and consent, that's where I'm starting right now to try to stay.
What's the one question you wish people asked you?
I wish more people would ask me not only like how can we help or what can I do. I guess I want more people to ask like with the full intention of
Following through.
yeah, and I know it's hard, but I just
Follow
wish
through.
in a fantasy world that people would be like, what can I do right now? And then I tell them, oh, you can go protest your local children's hospital. And then they would
And they
follow
get
through and do
the
it.
pickets.
Yeah, that would be great.
Let's go right now. Let's
Okay.
get up. Let's go.
Yeah, but it's,
I hope
it's
that
asking
for
a
you.
lot
I
of
really
people.
do. I hope more people do it. I
Yeah,
hope they're there by your side. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.